Okay, if you need something held in place, Justin can stop filming and he can hold it.
Yeah, no.
He's very good at that, aren't you?
That's my job.
No.
Ah!
The sound effect, it wasn't even that bad.
No, sorry, I just got a text.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Educating Tina. So Matt, what's on for today?
Today we're looking at macro. Do you know what macro is?
Macro sounds like Macca's, but is it an up-close shot of something?
It's a much better lifestyle choice than that. It is related to close-ups, but I think there's a big misconception, and that's one of the reasons I want to do this as one of your challenges. People don't really understand, I think, or some people, exactly what macro means. So, yep, close-ups are great. That basically means you get something small and you bring it big in your frame, or something that's a long way away and you bring it closer. You know, that's just basically zooming in as far as you can with your lens. But there's a difference between what you can do with your standard lenses and what you can do with a true macro lens. So today we're going to focus on close-ups and macros. But in terms of macro as a term, if a lens can do macro, that means that it can reproduce reality at a 1-to-1 ratio. What that means, if it's a centimeter in reality, a little B, it will be able to reproduce it as a centimeter on your sensor. So with your smaller sensor, it's going to take up a whole big portion of the frame, and then you're going to have a crazy amount of detail there. If you're shooting a big Australian spider that's 10 centimeters long, it'll mean that you can just focus in on just the head to fill up the frame.
We're not shooting spiders today, right?
We have a few surprises. We'll see where we go. But so your challenge for today is going to be creating one close-up image that you're really proud of, just using the lens that you've been shooting with.
This one's not a macro.
No. So actually a lot of times people get confused because lenses will throw macro on the packaging, but that just means it reproduces fairly large. I think this one will go through to 2.9, so about a third of true macro. And then you'll be shooting with this guy as well, which is the 60mm f2 macro, and this will give you true 1-to-1 reproduction. And with that, I want you to create 2 true macros that you think are fantastic.
Okay.
I'll tell you now, it will take hundreds and hundreds of shots to get a couple that you think are just fantastic.
Really?
Well,
I reckon it'll be easy.
You're a fast learner, but it is tedious work. And the reason it's difficult, and this is our first of our tips, as your reproduction ratio gets closer and closer to 1, your depth of field really shrinks down at every given F number. So whether that means that you've zoomed right in on something or that you've gotten closer to it, the amount that you're going to have in sharp focus gets less and less at a given F number. So if you were at F8 and I'm taking a headshot of you back here, then I might get this much depth of field. If I come right up close, I'm only going to have a tiny bit. Or if I stay back here and zoom in, I'm going to get less as well.
Okay.
So with a true macro lens, you'll find they often go to like F45, F64, or even beyond. This particular one goes all the way through to F45, but I think their 90mm one actually goes through to F64. And you'll be surprised, you do actually sometimes need that much to get it all in focus, depending on the depth that you've got going through your shot.
Okay.
But the second tip is, whilst you're focusing on depth of field, don't think that means that everything has to be sharp. There are a lot of macro shooters out there who are sticklers for that. They want everything to be pin sharp. But sometimes having, something fall away, just like if you were taking a headshot of a person, having eyes sharp and then falling away, it could be the same with a caterpillar, that having the face sharp and then falling away will actually make a really beautiful image. So we'll play with both of them. Another tip is, if you're going to be shooting at F numbers like F45, F64, obviously you're going to need a heck of a lot of light.
Yeah.
Okay, because the rest,
natural light is not going to be enough.
Well, we're going to start with that and see how you go. Okay. So, your exposure controls are all the same. You want a fast enough shutter speed that you're not getting movement in the shot. But if you're shooting still life, you may be able to do a longer shutter speed, so you don't need to worry about that so much.
So that'll be on a tripod?
Well, I know you got mad handheld skills, but we'll see how you go. Likewise, you want to keep your ISO down as much as you can to, keep your images nice and clean. All the things we talked about in the exposure videos in season 1. But then you're just going to need a whole bunch of light to compensate for that high F number.
Okay.
So we'll start out with natural light, see how you go, and then we'll augment it with different things to show you how you can bring up lots of detail.
Alrighty, cool.
Okay, so first things first, we're not going to use a really elaborate setup to get started. I want this to be a kind of thing that anyone could get started. So we've just set up next to a big window. We're using that original natural light first off. So let's start off just doing some close-ups. So this lens will let you zoom in all the way to 300 and you can focus down to 39 centimeters. let's just have a play and see what you can get. So pick a nice flower. Okay, so as I said, being in so close like that, you're gonna have a tiny depth of field. See, zooming in. If you've got anything, you've got a couple of the leaves there. What was your aperture?
9.
F9. Okay, so let's review the actual shooting info on that one. So that's 1/60th of a second, f9 at ISO 1000 already. It feels bright in here, but it really isn't. So your eye's much more powerful than your camera sensor, so it'll adjust to the amount of ambient light and kind of make do. But suddenly you realize, like Tina was, that you're shooting at ISO 1000 and you just don't have enough light. So I'm getting Tina to bring in the flash and we can work it through and see what options that opens up for her. So natural light can often look really bright to the eye, but it usually pales in comparison to the amount of power you can get from an external flash unit. Putting this guy even on half power, throwing it up on the roof to give us a big circle of light to light this, you're going to see that you get you're going to get so much more light to play with to control your exposure.
Alrighty, let's do this.
Okay, now.
That's blown out.
It is, because you're still in aperture priority. You need to go into manual. And then let's adjust your settings. So let's go to 1/50th of a second, 1/160th, around there. Now, whenever you're shooting in manual, make sure you turn off your auto ISO, otherwise the camera's still gonna use that to compensate. When you're using off-camera flash, it doesn't know it's there, so it's still metering the available light.
Alright.
So that's our first close-up. That's about as close as you can get with that lens, right?
Yes.
Let's play with my little friend, Batman. So with something like this, even with your close-up lens, rather than being a macro, you'll be able to get close to filling it because he's probably bigger than your sensor anyway. So try getting a shot of him. Let's go back to just using your aperture priority, and then try and fill up the background with just black to get a shot that makes him look like a big hero. Maybe hands forward.
So it's my first time shooting macro, and in my head I thought it'd be really, really easy, but as I took the first few shots with the natural daylight, I could feel my hand shake, and also after reviewing the photos, the quality wasn't amazing because my ISO was on auto and it was up to 1000. So after Matt introduced the flash, it started looking a bit better, and then we shot the little Batman, which was okay, but then the background, it wasn't filled up entirely with black. So Matt came in and he pulled the background up so I can get a nice clean background. Then we moved on to shooting the little fly and the hook. I did find it a bit hard getting the shot that I wanted with this lens, so I'm looking forward to see how it's going to be with the macro.
Now, let's see how close you can get. A viewer actually, who I gave a private lesson to, is mad keen on fly fishing, gave me this handmade fly. I'm not into fishing, but you know.
What do you mean it's a handmade fly?
So it's for doing fishing. They use this, it's got a hook on it, instead of trying to catch flies Mr. Miyagi style. Okay, so when we talk about hard and soft lights, we're talking about how big is the light source relative to the object.
Okay.
So right now, our light source is going to be the front of this.
Huge.
And it's absolutely relative to the fly. It's about as big of a ratio as you could get. We move from using the bounce light to the big soft box to get even more light into the shot. Because the light isn't traveling so far, it doesn't fall off as much. By bringing it in close, we can turn the power down, get faster recycle times, and now she's able to get F numbers at like F32 and F40 instead of the F11 she was at before, so a much greater depth of field to play with. As I said, when you're using these high F numbers, you need a lot more light, so still there you were struggling.
Yeah.
When we had the flash up here on the wall, light loses power as it travels. So from there it's got a foot to the wall, and then let's say 8 foot to come down here. So that's 9 foot of distance, the power's gonna fall off exponentially in that. By bringing this up a lot closer, we need less power and we can get it right down on top of it, so it also makes it relatively a bigger light source. So have a crack and you'll find you can get a much better shutter speed here. So you're getting close, but you won't realize huge amounts of detail with this kind of close-up technique. Next we're going to go to the macro lens and you'll be amazed what you can pull out there. Let's throw on the macro now. You want to change that one over. Now, of course, being that this is a 60 mil, you're going to be a lot closer up because we're going to be getting, 100% magnification on this. And you will be able to go all the way through to f45 with this one. So we're going to need to bring in even more light, but we've still got a few tricks up our sleeve on how you can get that light into your shot. Okay, so starting off at f32, let's get some shots on this flower and just see how close you can get. We are going to use the softbox here to give you a bunch of light. We'll bring it over to one side, but you're going to be right in there. I find it's actually handy sometimes to go into manual focus. So switch your lens to manual focus and then focus it to its closest focusing distance. Then actually go in and just see, it'll feel like you're getting really close to it. But as we said, this focuses down to 23 centimeters and that's from the focal plane to the flower. So it's only gonna be less than 10 centimeters from the end of the lens. Let's turn your light in, yep, and it's gonna be cramping you a little bit.
Okay, so that's a bit better. I think I want to brighten it though.
So one thing you want to keep in mind is here, obviously Tina's starting to get really cramped and the direction of the light is coming from right to left on the flower. It's not getting even coverage. When you're in so close, each little petal will start to cast shadows onto the other petals. If you want to fill all of that in, it's great to have more than one light source on your subject. After shooting with the group of flowers, we decided let's go in close and just work on the one flower that was overall the prettiest. We picked out this one yellow flower. Tina got a bunch of different shots and you can see she can get right in just on that central black section. Okay, so you're getting tiny little ones in sharp focus, but you're starting to get crowded out by the actual light modifier. And still, if we had even more light, we could get even more in sharp focus, right? So the size of your light modifier helps in minimizing shadows, but how handy would it be if you just had a massive softbox behind you, like standing on the surface of the sun?
Well, that would be really handy.
Would be really handy.
And less cramped for me. I feel like I'm gonna have some serious neck pain.
Oh, diddums. So let's try using a ring flash. You can use these off to one side for portraiture as like a beauty dish, but you can actually shoot your lens straight through it. So that essentially makes light come from everywhere around the lens. So if this side would cast a shadow to the right, this side will fill it in and you get an even coverage. So we'll hand hold a little flash here for you. I'll do that. And then still you can control it via your trigger system there. And that's gonna give you a huge amount of light because we're so close to it now. So you'll note though, you are still moving a tiny little bit and here you've only got millimeters of focus to play with. Yeah. So let's get you onto a tripod and then we can move this in and out. You can actually then use your live view to do the focusing for you.
Okay, that's much easier. Did that go off? Mm-hmm. Okay, so look, this one's in focus but all the petals aren't.
Yeah, so
that's really cool.
Yeah, I was saying at the start that you don't necessarily need to have everything in sharp focus. So we were up at f45. Now you're down at like F11, F12. Okay, so there you're probably really getting 1 or 2 millimeters of sharp focus. So yeah, play with your manual focus and try how does it look getting just the tips of the ends of the flower in, or if you get the center of the flower and have the tips all blurred out.
I'm really liking the shots with the ring light. All the shadows are filled in compared to the softbox. And then Matt gets me to pop my camera on a tripod, which I'm so thankful for because I'm getting shaky and my neck is hurting. So for all of you guys that shoot macro and it's handheld, I give it to you guys. Seriously, macro's not for me.
The type of flower Tina's shooting now, it's actually quite tricky because there's quite a bit of depth in the shot. When you're first getting started shooting macro, you want to pay attention to exactly where you put your focal point. In general shooting situations, if this is your focus point, you've got 1/3 of your focus zone is in front of that and 2/3 is behind with your camera here. But when you're doing macro, it's actually about 50% in front and 50% behind. So you want to get your perfect focus point in the middle of the two sections that are important for your final shot. So you got some pretty great images. How do you feel?
Yeah,
you're
well,
editing
I'm really happy with the shots that I got, but to be honest, at the start I thought macro, yeah, I've got this in the bag, it's pretty easy. But after shooting close-up versus macro, I could really see the difference in the quality of the photos after.
Yeah. I think that's, it's a big distinction between people. So you and I are both more used to shooting people, where
Definitely.
you can direct them, you can ask them to move around, and you have that feedback. Whereas this, it can be a really solitary kind of process, right? And it's quite finicky.
It's too tedious for me. It's too quiet. Maybe I need to play
Cutting
like
straight
music.
to the point. So for people at home, if you are going to get in there and try some macro or some extreme close-up work, then definitely put aside a few hours to do it. It's not going to be something where you can just set it up and get great shots off the bag. Your shots
That's what I thought, to be honest, but that didn't happen.
But certainly you could see your shots were getting better as the time went on. For folks at home, if you're going to try this yourself, you may not have the exact same equipment, but don't let that stop you. Trying, you know, you may find that 3 or 4 different house lamps put close to whatever it is you're shooting will give you enough light. Just really pay attention to where the shadows are and get in close. If you're going to be focusing, you may find, you know, if you're going to be focusing manually, using the live view to do that may really help. And it's micro adjustments, right?
Really tedious stuff, yeah.
Okay, so that's another challenge in the bag.
Yes.
Macro done. Don't celebrate too much. We've still got a lot of surprises and curveballs
Yeah,
coming
but at
for you
least I
this
got
season.
this one done. I'm proud.
Please do jump over to the link that's in the caption below on mattgranger.com, where you can leave your feedback for Tina. Maybe you're a macro pro and you want to share some advice for the community as well. And you can suggest other challenges for her throughout the rest of this season. We've got 12 episodes in Educating Tina Season 2, and 10 of them are going to be challenges. So get involved and share your thoughts. Well done.
Thank you.
We'll see you next week.
Bye. Educating Tina Season 2 is brought to you by Tamron. Check them out, the link is in the caption below.
In episode 5 of Educating Tina, we're heading to the sunny Sydney beaches to do some fitness photography with a male and female swimsuit model. Join us as Tina uses natural light, strobes, and studio equipment, all on location.
What's wrong? He just shook his head. That's not a good sign.
No, it's just because the
Racist.
I'm using some sunlight, which I hate to do through, and just change the exposure.
Son of a motherless goat. Welcome back to Educating Tina. This week, what are we doing? Be playful.
That was
You know,
good,
have fun with it.
Like more questions, engaging.
See?
That was
Oh, it's
legit.
fine.
Yeah.
Let me be.
That's all we need. Just be
So questions are good now. Let's have them be like smart questions.
No, it's for the new.
What's macro?
Yeah. What is
And then I want you to create 2 that are true macro shots. And for that, I've actually got in some macro lenses.
Ooh.
That was a bit weird, wasn't it? Ooh. It's like you just saw something like, oh.